The women's purpose in, according to traditional gender roles is to serve your husband and your son, and don't talk back to your husband, and don't argue with him, and don't have opinions, things like that. But things have changed, and if you can see in this revolution, like, women are not only fighting for the political freedom, they're also fighting for equality. In this revolution, to fight for a true democracy where everybody is treated as equal.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Yellow Van Stories, your interview podcast taking you across the globe in a yellow French camper van by the name of Fonzie. I'm your host and driver, Bastian. Today, we come to you with another special episode focusing on the current situation in Myanmar, particularly on the role of women. It is a conversation I have been looking forward to ever since Teza, my guest today, was introduced to me. Ever since the military coup, I've been wondering what I could do from the enormous comfort of my home to show solidarity and support for the courageous Burmese women and men fighting for their freedom. And it turns out there is a way. The initiative printforcrisis.org, run by my friends Olga Stefatu and Chiara Luxardo, offers you the opportunity to buy limited edition photo prints of more than 80 internationally acclaimed photographers until the 11th of May. More information about the initiative and how it supports the democratic struggle in Myanmar will follow at the end of this episode. Fonzie's in first gear already, and we are good to go. So buckle up and get comfortable, because today we look into the powerful role women are playing in the Burmese democratic movement and why that is a reason for hope and optimism. Here with us in the Yellow Van today is Teza Soe, a Burmese visual storyteller with a doctorate in photography. And I am extremely happy to have you on board, Teza. I've been extremely looking forward to our conversation today for the last 2 weeks already. So welcome on board.
Hi, thank you for inviting me. And I'm really glad to be here and to talk about things that, that are going on in Myanmar.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's I spoke to Min last week, which I thought was very, very, very interesting for me. I took away so much from that about democracy and about that background. And now today with you to focus on the role of women in Myanmar, and also especially during this democratic movement now. And so we'll get into that right away after we have dealt with the usual traditional things in this podcast, right? So first off, what did you pour yourself to drink?
I made myself a virgin mojito. It's a virgin mojito because I can handle alcohol and I don't want to embarrass myself on the podcast getting drunk.
I think I should do that all the time as well. to just not embarrass myself. So I think I'll take that as a thing for me for the future as well. And where are you right now? I have to tell you what I poured myself. I skipped that last week already. I keep doing that. I poured myself because I just read in Myanmar that rum is a very popular drink. Beers are very popular. But, then rum is in many other places as well, and beer as well. So to get a really proper Burmese beer or rum was kind of impossible for me. So I decided to go with something else, which is a strong black tea. It's a Darjeeling tea. I know it's also not Burmese. It's the closest thing I could get, with a lot of sugar and condensed milk. Yeah. And I heard that's also something that's very popular.
Tea shops, right? And some tea shops are really well known and popular for the way they make the tea. And there are different variations of it, like whether you want it extra sweet or extra tea. So well done. I'm sure it tastes delicious.
So I didn't. Oh, thank you. Oh, it is. It is absolutely. I love it. I mean, how can you go wrong with sweet tea? There's just nothing.
You can beat the sugar high.
Possibly. Nothing that you can possibly. Yeah, exactly. Usually that's also a good thing, especially also for a podcast interview. But I'm totally ready to go. Where are you right now?
I'm in my living room in Manchester.
All right. And what's your favorite item?
Oh, at this minute, I would say my Virgin Mojito glass.
That's very good. Oh, show that
it's
again, please, for me. Oh my God, you have been listening in before. These podcast interviews or conversations they can take a long time. So you come prepared. You come prepared. That's very good. My cup's also quite big. Look, it's not that small. Yeah, it's okay. It will last a while, a little bit at least. So now, usually at this point, I would read a CV that I have handwritten and handcrafted. Today we're going to do it a little differently because after you sent me a link to the thesis, which we're going to be talking about, because you have a doctor in photography, which is something quite extraordinary. You said actually it's a doctor in philosophy, right? Technically. But you did it with a focus on photography and the photographic process.
Yes, that is correct.
Yes. All right. So because I've never really met a doctor in photography, that to me is absolutely something entirely new and exciting.
A good thing or bad.
No, I think it's a very good thing. You take amazing photos. And having a doctorate, I think it's amazing. So I mean this absolutely praisingly. Also because I believe the topic of your thesis is incredibly interesting and deserves a lot of attention and praise in itself. And because of that, I decided instead of writing something about you to let you introduce yourself a little bit by your preface to the thesis that you wrote. Because I think it will give a very good starting point for the conversation we're about to have. So this really mainly goes out to the listeners today because you pretty much know what you wrote in there already. But but bear with me. After 2 non-virgin mojitos, maybe it would be different, but not today. So bear with me while I read this out, and then right after that we talk about your motivation and where it went from there.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, all right. So you start off with, I left my country, Myanmar, when I was 16 to attend a university in Thailand. The reasons for me to leave home, a familiar environment, at such a young age to study abroad did not come easy. I vividly remember getting into the biggest argument ever with my parents just after the matriculation examination results came out. I still remember my total score was 2 points short of the cutoff point for the University of Medicine that year for women. That year, the Ministry of Education had decided to raise the entry requirements for girls and reduce the requirement for boys because they felt that there had been too many women and not enough men in the country's most pivoted profession. Up until that point, all my life, I was told that the best thing I could achieve or the best profession I could get into as a woman in Myanmar is the medical profession. In that moment, I felt like my whole world had ended, as if everything I had worked for the past 11 years counted for nothing. And then I learned that my friend who got a lower score than I did could apply for the medical school, although his total score was 15 points lower than mine, just because the requirements are set much lower for boys. That was the first time in my life I felt so angry for being born as a woman. It wasn't that I had failed. It wasn't that I didn't try hard enough. My only shortcoming was being a woman. My mother reminded me that it's not the first time this has happened, and it won't be the last. And I know it happens to many other girls in my country. Our dreams and aspirations are taken away just because we are born female. At 16, with my lifelong dreams shattered and with no other viable alternative path, I decided to leave my home. From that point on, my eyes were wide open and I began to notice a lot of things that women in my country are deprived of just because of our gender. This research is the way for me to address and expose the systemic gender oppression in Myanmar culture and how religion is used to justify gender inequality by evoking traditional beliefs and practices about how women and girls should be treated within society. In a way, it is created to demonstrate how photography can be employed to push back such outdated and toxic views towards women. After all, we, humans, must move forward and thrive for a better, more equal world for future generations. To achieve this, some traditions must evolve or be left behind. I understand how privileged I am to be able to leave the country to pursue my dreams and to be given this platform to discuss and debate the issues pertinent to the emancipation of women in Myanmar. I'm not claiming that this is the story of all Myanmar women. My experience may differ from other Myanmar women, as we all lead different lives and share different socio-economic backgrounds. This is merely my experience of being a Myanmar woman for the past 31 years, and these are the questions I have for my country and our patriarchal society. So after this, I think this is beautifully written. I just want to say once again, welcome to the Yellow Van, Teza, and I'm so excited to have you on board today.
Well, thank you
Thanks
for
joining
inviting me. I'm so glad to be here, and thank you for reading out my preface I've written.
Well, I thought it was just giving a very good compass or the good coordinates to what we're going to be talking about. So, and I would like to take it from there. So my first question to you would be, what happened from that moment on that you're describing there? At the age of 16, you decided to go to Thailand. What was your next step?
I went to Thailand because I felt that, I couldn't possibly achieve my dream anymore. I really didn't know what to do. And at 16, I felt quite lost. And I felt that I would not have a career in life. And now that, the best thing that I could possibly do is just gone. So I went to Thailand and I decided that I was going to study computer graphics and multimedia. So that's what I did. But looking back, I felt incredibly lucky that I was able to do that. And, and that I was privileged enough to be able to leave my country. And, because there are many girls or women in my position who can't possibly, do that, or who don't have that opportunity. So, yeah. And yeah,
Where did you go to Thailand?
I studied
Where did you study?
At the Bangkok University International, and I studied computer graphics and multimedia for 4 years, and I got a degree in Bachelor of Technology. Mm-hmm. And then and then I worked, as a faculty member, and then came to the UK to do further studies.
Wow, amazing! You've been in the UK for 8 years already, right? All right. So that's also been quite some time. And to be honest with you, it's amazing because you already sound very British. It's amazing how you've taken on the colors in that sense, at least language wise. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So let me ask you this then. After studying computer, and media technology, when did you decide to go into the field of photography? When did that happen? Because you had already studied something, so why take it further? What sparked your interest there?
The reason I studied computer graphics at the time was that I've always been interested in art, and that's something that was. But up until after high school, I didn't really think about any like alternative plan or backup plan. I didn't have a backup plan, and then suddenly I was forced to choose something. So that's why I chose computer graphics, because I knew that, that I'm not interested in business and science and science means like engineering and this and the other. So I decided to go for computer graphics. And then in my third year of my bachelor degree, we were taught digital photography class. And then suddenly I was so interested in it, and I wasn't interested in anything else at all. And from that point on, I was booking, photography studio, and I was taking on my own personal projects. And that was it for me, really. And that's when everything changed for me, I suppose. Yes.
You fell in love with the medium of photography
in my third year. And I was doing completely, different things than what we are being taught in class, because I just was that interested in photography, and I wanted to do everything, and I wanted to dedicate all my spare time, doing something with photography or working on some projects related to photography.
I guess that's how you know that this is something you want to do for the long run. That's a very good indication.
So,
and why also just quickly to go back, because I didn't ask you, why wasn't it medicine though in Thailand? Why wasn't it medicine? Why was it computer? Wasn't it possible to do that in Thailand?
The reason is that I've never wanted to be a doctor. I was never interested in medicine. I didn't want to be a doctor, but that's what I was told that I should, that's what I should aim for, and that's what I should be, because that's the best thing you could do as a woman. So there wasn't like, do you want to be a doctor, or are you interested in medicine? It wasn't like that. It was what you aspire to be when you grow up. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, it makes absolute sense. It's also, so basically it's the best you can hope for in your gender, to put it this way, right? As a woman. So in order to make everybody proud, maybe even, and to be the best you can be in society, you become a doctor.
Especially that time, I didn't even know about photography. And to go back to that time and to tell my parents that, hold on, mom and dad, I want to be a photographer, they will laugh at me, and there was no such thing as women photographer back then. And that's not something that women should do, according to, to our culture.
Wow. So that must have also been taking you a lot of, first of all, obviously introspection, a lot of courage as well, to go up to your parents and say, Mom, Dad, look, I think it's nice to be a doctor and the world needs doctors, but the world doesn't need me as a doctor. I really want to do something else. So you didn't only go against your parents, I think, wishes for you, but also against society
expectations, I would say. Yeah.
Preconditioning and expectation. Yes. So that takes a lot of courage. Amazing. You. And when was it for you? When were you like, wow, this photography business, I love doing it. It's great. But you know what? I don't just want to do it as a hobby. I really want to do this as a profession.
Well, when I was in Thailand, when I was doing, my bachelor degree, I started like working on side projects. Like, I was shooting campaign, like fashion campaign for clothing brands. And I was like staging, model shoots for my friends, like portfolio and this and the other. But I realized that my interest in photography is not really in commercial, area. But I was more interested in like when I saw like magazine spreads, or like when I saw like photography. I wanted to know the thinking behind it, like what's the story, what are they trying to tell me? So I wanted to be able to tell a story. So that's what inspired me to study fine arts, I suppose, to know what to know like I would say like the narrative aspects of it, I suppose. So after I finished my bachelor degree, I decided to apply for Master of Fine Arts and Photography.
And did you already link up your own personal history with? I mean, if you do fine arts, it will inevitably happen, because the clay that you work with is usually yourself and your own emotional insights. But was it already clear quite from the start to you that you would also like to use photography to use it as a tool for emancipation? Because this is one of the things that you say also in the opening of your thesis, that you see photography as a feminist tool.
Because when I applied for my MFA degree, all I had at that time was my commercial portfolio. So I'm now looking back, I'm so surprised. I'm so thankful that my course leader, decided to accept me to study, because my portfolio wasn't in fine art area at all. And then when I came here and, started my program, and then I remember that our first year was to use photography, to tell a story, or, and critical thinking. And so in the first year, I started working on my self-portraits, and sort of, my course leader and what we were studying at the time sort of like let me to think about what I want to say, or or what I'm trying, like, what am I trying to communicate in my self portraits, and yeah, that sort of led me to like, what are other Myanmar women photographers are saying, what are their stories? So it sort of led me to that path. And then at the time, I couldn't find any like Myanmar women photographers at all on the on the internet. So I was like, hang on a second, how come there are no Myanmar women photographers? And then that sort of led me to do my PhD research. Into my PhD research and where I am right now. So it wasn't like, one day I woke up and said, today's the day that I'm going to be doing this and the other. So yeah, it took me quite a while.
All right. That's usually, I understand. And that's also usually never the case. Usually good things take some time. But is it because when you talk about this and there are no Burmese photographers, or there weren't at the time, now there are a few. I've seen, because we're doing this in line with, Print for Crisis, and I've seen some amazing images that are up for sale now by female photographers.
Yes.
So that has changed a little bit as well. But also, in other countries as well. I mean, also in Germany, also in the UK, you still have a lot of artistic professions. I had my sister on the show, for instance, as well, who's a camera assistant and aspiring camera woman. And she says the same, that there's a lot of men working in this profession, as opposed to women. So this is not something that is specific to one particular country, but it is something that you still find in varying degrees all over the world. And I think maybe one of the things to see how far emancipation has come in various countries is if you really look, especially also at those, at male dominated fields, and see how well women are doing that. Actually, I should put it the other round. How well men are doing that in opening up their profession to women, which shouldn't be their profession in the first place at all. It should be, a profession that can be accommodated or served by everyone. So how do you see that relationship of Myanmar in relationship to other countries in that sense?
Myanmar photography industry has, changed a lot in recent years, especially after the democratic, like government led by Aung San Suu Kyi and stuff. And the artists can say a lot more. And before, up until about, I reckon 2010, photography exhibitions and art exhibitions were not allowed. So, that tells you a lot, because previously under the military dictatorship, they don't encourage self-expression or freedom of expression or using art to make any political comments about the situation. But that has changed a lot within past decade, but still has so much limitations and not where we should be in this day and age. But still, it was an improvement. So with, like many emerging women photographers in Myanmar and, female collective, like Women Only Collective, Duma Collective, doing amazing things. We have a lot more women photographers in Myanmar now, but still a lot more work needs to be done, for women to be able to access photography education and be able to have access to cameras, I suppose. And male photographers have been dominating, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, really. They've been dominating the photography industry for decades, and it's so refreshing to see women are starting to take part and play important roles in photography industry in Myanmar now. And for little girls to look up to Myanmar women photographers such as Duma Collectives and Meko Nai, who's in charge, who's helped run, and she's part of the Yangon Photo Festival team, and to have such role models to look up to, and which is a really amazing thing. And I hope that more positive changes will happen, and for that to happen, and for photographers and artists to continue to have freedom of expression, we need to win this revolution, because there is no alternative. And if the military were to win and this coup, and if the country were to be put under the regime for whatever they say, 2 years or whatever, everything that the women photographers and women activists work so hard for, it will take a step back, and And that's why I think, this is very important. This revolution is. I'm sorry, I'm taking you to a different topic than you asked me for, but I got carried away.
No, please. Oh, Teza, you're doing wonderfully. I'm sorry because don't get this impression either. Because to be honest with you, when in preparation for this interview today, I was more thinking like, I want to actually listen more than talk. I'm not always so good at that. I mean, I sometimes also talk, but because you are. I think this is something that will suit all of us men quite well. That when we talk about emancipation and women in particular fields being underrepresented, that we should actually listen and not talk so much. So I'm welcoming you, just embracing it and just sharing your thoughts with us and with me especially. So please don't feel at any moment that you are like taking this topic to another thing. Not at all. So please continue. This is very, very interesting. Yes.
No, I think that's about that's about it. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's about it.
That's entirely fine as well. Don't worry, because I do also have a couple of questions as well, of course. You mentioned already a couple of collectives, which I want to go into more detail a little bit later as well. I would like to just, if I may, maybe just go to. I would like to start like this, maybe, for everybody who hasn't been following the news so much, to give us a quick rundown of what is going on in Myanmar right now. Where is the democratic movement right now?
We had an election in last November, and as the listeners and you may already know that Aung San Suu Kyi, the Nobel Prize winner party, won again with landslide victory. But within days of them winning, the military-backed USDP party, they make an allegation that there's been an election fraud, and that they want they don't like, they were asking the military not to recognize the election results, and that they want another election. But everybody who voted, were saying that no, we voted fair and square, and please accept the result. And that's what the NLD, National League of Democracy, Aung San Suu Kyi party said as well. So on the 1st of February, the day that the newly elected government was supposed to be sworn in, the military staged a coup. And ever since then, they arrested Aung San Suu Kyi and the president and, her cabinet members and political activists, artists, journalists, and pretty much everyone who's, speak out against this regime and the coup. So far, as of yesterday, they've murdered over 700 people, detained over 3,300 people, and over 1,200 people being put on warrant lists, and they are on the run. And those people are just ordinary citizens who find themselves in this situation as political activists. But just because we don't accept this coup and we speak up against the coup, people being murdered or arrested and, or kidnapped or tortured. So this is what's happening right now in Myanmar.
Do you remember where you were and what was going through your mind when you heard about the coup?
Well, I remember it vividly because I woke up to phone call from my mom, like missed calls from my mom about, I think, 4 a.m. And normally my parents never call me. We write to each other. So first, I was so worried. I thought something had happened, to either my mom or dad. So when I tried to ring them back, I couldn't get through to them. And then I woke and I saw that my mom had sent me a load of messages saying that something terrible had happened and that the military had staged a coup. So I couldn't believe it. Like I really couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I said, please, not again. Like this can't possibly be happening. And so I turned on the news and it was on breaking news. So I was crying and I was really worried. So because I think it has to do with like disbelief that this can't possibly be happening again, that they can't do this to us again. And I'm repeatedly saying the word again because they've done that many times. If you look at Myanmar's history, we've been under the dictatorship for decades, since 1962, the first coup, and then 1988, and we've lived under the dictatorship for over 50 years, up until 2010. And so this democratic elected government only lasted for a decade, and now they jumped this to us again. And because of that, I think that initial reaction was that no, we can't live like that again. And they said they've only done this for 1 year, but looking at the history, people don't have any faith in what they are saying, and more importantly, they have no legal grounds to be doing this because we chose and we elected and we voted our government. So just because they're not happy with the results, they can come and take the election results away. And yeah, so yes, now even, like saying this, repeating this again, and I can't believe that this is happening, that they are doing this to us again.
So your mom and your dad, your family there in Myanmar
yes, my parents
right now as well?
In Myanmar right now. And yeah, it's been hard trying to, get in contact with them after the coup, because they initially, when it first happened, they cut off all the phone lines and internet. So I couldn't get through to my parents. I didn't know, how things are. I didn't know if they were okay. And then gradually they started, limiting the internet time and mobile phone time, say, for example, from like 1 a.m. local time to 9 a.m. local time, people can use internet. And during that time, you can make overseas phone calls. I couldn't get through to my parents within that time. So if anything were to happen during that time, I wouldn't be able to get a hold of my parents. And now they've limited mobile internet, and then now Wi-Fi. And there was a talk of like making it like a intranet, like only local connections or something like that a few days ago. So they're gradually limiting like people access to information since then.
So it is getting more and more difficult actually to get hold. They're shutting off the country more and more.
Definitely.
Are you thinking of I mean, of course, but is there a chance, I should rather ask, of getting your parents to the UK in any way, or your family, immediate family?
We can't do that because firstly, because of COVID, the airport was closed for a long time, and now they only arranging relief flights and stuff. So, and another reason is that ever since the coup, I'm sure you've heard of the civil disobedient movement. I'm not sure. So it's CDM. So CDM, like bank staffs are participating in CDM and stuff. So all the banks being shut, and it's a sacrifice that we all have to make to fight this coup. And so it's really hard for people to get their money out of the bank. So to get I think the limit now is maybe £200 a day from ATM, you can take out. And people been queuing to get their money out from ATM since my mom told me this morning that the ATM near us has a queue of over 100 people at 9 a.m. And, people have to wait in line for about 2 hours, 3 hours to get their money. And so the bank near us already have over 1,600 people giving their name to take their money out. And the maximum you can take out is 500. So it's really hard for people to have access to their money. And so, for my parents to leave Burma, I don't think it's possible at this minute. And, it's the whole country have made sacrifices, like the, bank staff doing CDM and stuff like that. And so I think the country's economy is in really, really bad situation at this minute.
Yes. Are your parents in Yangon? Where are they? Are they okay? Okay, and the only way to stay safe is to stay in your houses.
Because they have martial law, and they have curfew, meaning you can't go out, within certain times, and and it's a constant worry, really, because my dad, he likes to take the dog out for a walk, and at night before bedtime, and I'm sure as a dog owner, you will know that when the dogs, they are used to the routine. If they go out at 8 o'clock, they expect you to take them out at 8 o'clock. They don't understand if you're busy or whatever, but they want to be out. So, it's I have to constantly remind my dad, Dad, please don't take the dog out, at 8 o'clock. You should take the dog out at 6 o'clock. And, little things like that you never really thought about before. And like say, because the police stop and search people's phone, and if they found like anything about CDM or any posts on your social media that you support the CRPH or CDM movement, or you wrote something about like that insult the military or something, they can take your phone away, and then they can also arrest you, and or they might shoot and kill you. Who knows? They've been acting like whatever way they want to without any laws or anything like that at all. So I have to tell my parents that please don't go out if you don't have to. Please, if they stop the car, please stop the car and let them search you. And because there's been previous accidents where the people don't stop the car and they start shooting, and a lady who's been like, I think a lady who worked for a bank, I think she's been shot dead because the car didn't stop, and she was just she just came home from work, she did nothing wrong. So there's been incidents like that. So it's like, it's really hard to put into words the little things I never thought about before, and now I'm constantly worried for them.
I've heard so many terrible things also coming out of Myanmar, and I also don't want to, stay with that for too long, because obviously you have such a concern, without any doubt. The only other thing that I would like to know, after all the things that we hear and also the story you've just described, how would you say is the resolution amongst the public to keep going? Because this has been going on for weeks already, and I admire this courage of people going out despite all the danger that they're facing for fear of life and limb. Is it wearing off already, or are people still, from as much as you can tell, as determined as they were on day one?
I feel that we are determined. People are determined, and all we've got is courage and resilience to fight back. But although we have, the people on the ground haven't got weapons and and tools to fight back, but I've read that today there have been a protest in Rangoon again. The people are coming out on streets again. Despite the military been shooting and already kills children and stuff, but people stay fighting because, like we discussed earlier, because there are no alternative for us. We can't go back, and we've sacrificed this much already. And so I don't think that people will cool off, and I think people will keep fighting, because I think the only change is that in the beginning, when it first happened, people on the ground and all the Burmese people abroad, we hope that the UN or other foreign country might intervene and won't let this happen. But it's already how 2 months on, nobody has intervened yet. People keep releasing statements, and I understand this is a tricky situation, and this is other countries are dealing with their own thing. But I think people have accepted that we have to fight this on our own, and that we might not get any help from anybody outside at all. So I think this is where we are at right now.
I would like to make a bit of a transition, as hard as it is, because I think it is very, very important to know where Myanmar is right now, in its movement, in its revolution, as you said as well. And I want to go a little more into the history of women in Myanmar, because I think if you do that, because I read today that 60% of the protesters, roughly, of the demonstrators are women. Right. And if you understand the role of women in Myanmar society as far as I do, which is, your average Joe Schmo on the street that just reads a couple of articles about it, I think it's also reason to have a lot of hope for Myanmar, that so many women are taking to the street and are taking on this predominant role in protesting this military coup. And in order to understand that, I think it's very worth going back a little bit, backing off for the moment, and just describing the historic role of women in Myanmar. Would you be able to do that in a rough overview?
To put it roughly, and not go on in details, because it would take hours to discuss that. But in Myanmar, women are traditionally, and according to our gender stereotypes, women are viewed as second-class citizens because of our gender and because of the religion. So according to Myanmar religion, not Myanmar religion, but I believe that the majority of people practice Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism in Myanmar. And according to the religion, it says that women cannot become a Buddha, whereas men can. Meaning it's like the next god, So for women to become a next god, they have to be really good to men in this life, and only then they can wish to be born as a man in their next life, and then they can try to become, a Buddha in their, in their next life. So I think because of that,
Sorry, can I just quickly say because I came across this Myanmar proverb and I think that sums it up also very well. It says, I've stumbled across it a couple of times, and it says, husband is God, son is master, right? So this is quite a common proverb in Myanmar.
It is.
Right?
So the women's purpose in, according to traditional gender roles is to serve your husband and your son, and don't talk back to your husband, and don't argue with him, and don't have opinions, things like that. But things have changed, and and if you can see in this revolution, like, women are not only fighting for the political freedom, they're also fighting for equality. In this revolution, to fight for a true democracy where everybody is treated as equal. So to look back historically, women have always been active, politically active throughout Myanmar history. So during the colonization, women played huge roles, in country's politics and throughout the dictatorship as well. But because of the dictatorship in 1962, women did not have any leadership positions in the government because the military government prohibit women from taking up any higher up positions, in a way, again, to not give women any power to make any decisions at all. And men held important positions throughout, the military dictatorship. And in 1988, again, in 8888 uprising, women played, important part in uprising against the Women March and protested, and Aung San Suu Kyi's entry to Myanmar political scene was also 1988 uprising. And again, now, in this revolution, I'm not sure if you heard of her name. She's called Teza Soe. When the coup happened on 1st of
you mentioned her.
Yes, on the 1st of February, when the coup happened, like, majority of people, we didn't know what to do. Were we supposed to be, marching on the street to protest it? What are we going to do? Because Aung San Suu Kyi has been, detained along with many of her, leadership positions from her party. So people didn't have any leader in this revolution. So that's another, exciting things about this revolution, because there is no one person leading this. Everybody is leading this revolution and stuff. So on 4th of February, Teza Soe, she was one of the first one to start marching on the street, and then many thousands of people joined in. So she became the face of it, So if you think about, like, Burmese proverbs saying women are weak and defenseless, and that women need men's protection and this and the other, but when you look at her, she's do you know what I mean? She's defying the traditional belief that women shouldn't be leaders, or women shouldn't be, women should be in the kitchen pretty much, So it's really exciting. And she's only 27 years old, and I believe, So, and after that, so, loads of women joined in, and on International Women's Day this year, we did a sarong revolution. So what it is that, because of the traditional belief and religion in Myanmar, like, women cannot wash their undergarment and, skirts or things together with men's clothes, because they believe that can pollute the power of the man. So it's sort of, it's very outdated, and it came from the religion again. So because of that, what women did was they hang their undergarments and sarong on the street to deter the soldiers from getting through. So to get through, because the soldiers were so worried of their power, the mysterious power that men have, being polluted by women's undergarments, they have to get out of the car and remove the sarong. So So that gave the time, to protesters to get away. So women use this as a, weapon to fight back. So on International Women's Day, so many women march.
I absolutely love that.
March holding their sarong, and many men even march along with women wearing sarong on their head to show that they don't believe in this outdated, stereotype. So, which to me is incredible, because now men, men from this generation are also starting to see that all these, women's undergarments might pollute our power and this and the other. They're starting to see through, all these like traditional and outdated and baseless, like stereotypes and teaching, and they don't believe it anymore. So I think that is quite incredible. So to go back to the point. So this revolution is quite incredible, because it's not only that fighting for the country's freedom, it's also women are fighting for the equality as well. Because when we win this in the I think very soon we'll win. But in the future, Myanmar society, or, people cannot say that, oh, you acting like a woman, or, like you belong in the kitchen. They can't say that, because then women can point out and say that, look at this revolution. We were at the forefront of it. We marched along it. And so I think we will truly achieve, the true equality in very near future. And I think this revolution will be the drive of it, I suppose. Sorry, I bubbled on again.
You're creating a historical precedent, basically.
Yes, definitely.
No, it's so interesting. It is so interesting. But that's exactly what it is. I just wanted to add on to it, like that they're creating a historical precedent. What you just said and described beautifully, and I can listen to you for hours because you're so passionate and you're so insightful about these things. So please don't apologize at all. I find this absolutely fascinating. Also, I have to tell you, I love this sarong revolution, because there's just something about using the stigma that has been created around something by men, that the women use it to their advantage and to their power. There's just this wonderful, beautiful irony in it that is just absolutely amazing. So that's a beautiful example that you just gave.
Because of this, like religious-based, outdated view, women are not allowed to climb heights in Myanmar, and like little trivial things that people take, I take for granted, because in here I just do what I want. But as soon as I visit home, I've been reminded of things that women are not allowed to do. Like we can't, go, enter a certain part of the temple. That is based, that is in other religions as well. But we can't go and, we can climb heights, or we can climb trees, and, we can stand above man, or don't talk to, don't talk to him in front of people like that. Or do you know what I mean? Or keep your opinion down to yourself, like little things like that. And I think this is the time that those will change, and then the true equality that women be fighting so hard for, I think that it's coming very soon, and which is very exciting, really.
You know why I also said when I asked you this question about the historical meaning of or the historical role of women, and why it is so hopeful that women being such a big part of this revolution, and also 1988, like you said already, is because at the same time it also shows that Burmese society has been opening up a lot. And I do believe you cannot turn back the clock.
No.
You can maybe put a hard stop for some time, but there are seeds that have been planted that will not be lost. And I think this is why women are so important in this, to look at their role, and like you just pointed out, and it's reason to be hopeful.
Yes.
Exactly. Is that also where you draw your hope from, to a large degree?
Yes, because we know what are at stake, so we can't really afford to say that, okay, we accept the coup, kind of thing, because we've we know, what we're fighting for, and we've experienced it, but maybe not fully, but we had a taste of it. What is, like, say, under the democratic, government, the country improved a lot, and, feminist organizations are formed, and women can openly, discuss like what's happening, or, where we stand in the society, this and the other. But if the military win, and, if the military-backed party came into power, the nationalists, to go back, to go into it quickly, many people who support the pro-military, they also support nationalism, and they have extreme nationalist views. And the militaries and the military-backed party slogan is, "We vow to protect race and religion." As you can imagine how problematic and dangerous it sounds, race and religion. And what they mean, race and religion, is the majority of, race and religion.
Especially in a multi-ethnic society, right?
So what they mean by race is that only like Burmese race and Buddhism. And they use religion as a tool to oppress women. So, in 2011, the first like democratic, I don't want to use the word democratic, but it was a quasi-democracy government. 2011 to 2016 was a military-appointed government because Aung San Suu Kyi party didn't participate in that election. So when they came into power, coincidentally, in 2011, there was also an insurgency in Myanmar nationalist movement, because the government allowed, like free speech and people to, gather and assemble, organizations. There was an association called, Mabata. I'm not sure if you heard of his name, the monk called Wiatu. He's an extremist monk, He regularly gave hate speech, and, the face of terror. He was on the Times magazine, and I think his group is called Association of Protection of Race and Religion or something like that. Yeah. So his group was formed at that time, and they proposed a bill in 2015 called Women's Special Marriage Bill, meaning that if a Burmese woman, a Buddhist woman, wants to marry somebody who's not Burmese or not Buddhist, they need to seek an approval from a local council, and they can only go ahead and get married if the council give the permission. And if they go ahead and get married without the local council's approval, the groom, can be punishable for 10 years in prison time. And that group, the nationalist group, they proposed a bill, and over 1 million people signed and supported the bill, which itself is quite worrying if you think about it. And that they said that bill is, they was proposed to protect women, like Burmese women, meaning that, if the military government or came into power, those kind of things will happen again, and women will be viewed as property, like public property. And it's also very dangerous for minority, like religious minorities such as Muslims and Christian, like people who practice different religion, as you can see what's happening with Rohingya, minority in Myanmar. So if the military came into power, things would get a lot worse, and for minority people as well, and for women. So that is on the line as well, not only, our freedom and democracy, but so people are fighting for everything with everything they got. So there is no really any alternative, for us to accept this. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I want to start.
It is really a question of black and white, right?
It really is, if you think about it, because military supporters, they on social media, they will say that, why don't you just accept just 1 year? It would just be a 1 year, and then the election will be held. But people already know that, because with this military, this is what they said in 1988 uprising. That's what they said, that, only 1 year, and then they will hold the election. And guess what? In 1990 election, Aung San Suu Kyi party won again, landslide. And guess what they did to her? They detained her. They imprisoned many NLD members, and they put the country under the dictatorship. And because they said they're going to write, a new constitution, which took them over decades and decades and decades to write. So this is what's coming, and people know that. So there's no way for people to accept this 1 year, alleged 1 year that they promised that the military is going to, take control of the country, and a promise of new election. We don't need a new election. We've already had one. And, and another thing is that because the people, the pro-military supporters, they believe that, this army and the USDP is gonna truly protect Myanmar race and religion, and they believe that if Aung San Suu Kyi party were to win, or to come back in power again, that Myanmar will be under the Western influence, and then their main point, or their main weapon, or I don't want to use the word weapon because I don't think it's anything wrong with what Aung San Suu Kyi's done or life choices, is that Aung San Suu Kyi married a foreigner, and they use it as a tool to attack her and say that she doesn't love our race and she doesn't love our religion because she married a foreigner. So if Aung San Suu Kyi were to come into power, that's what's going to happen to our women. Do you see where this thing is going? So that's another thing as well. And
of course,
and so I don't want to use the word, sexist and racist to it's like lightly, but the USDP party and the military, their supporters, most of them have racist and extreme, sexist and racist views. And I think it's quite dangerous because now things are, this bad. But when the military is and their party, if they want it, in their alleged, the new election that they're gonna hold. But because Aung San Suu Kyi is being arrested and many of our senior figures being, detained, they are hoping that if they hold the election in next year, they're gonna win it because they're not gonna compete against anybody. It's their own one party election, isn't it? So, and then things will be a lot worse for women and minorities.
Of course. I think whenever you mix religion with with extremism in whatever way, like you described, it is always it creates one of the most toxic environments for whatever minority is put in the focus. And it seems that women in Burmese society have had to bear the brunt of a lot of that in the past. So, and I do understand also after you explained that now also why women are at the forefront to a large degree. Not to say that there aren't men either, of course there are men, but it seems to everything, according to what I've read, is that women are really a majority. And that has to do with they have more to fear than men when society goes back to how it was before. And I think that makes perfect sense. I would also like to take this opportunity because you have put this out so wonderfully for us to understand a little bit more about your thesis and about how you are dealing with photography and the rights of women and feminism. And in order to do that, I would actually like to ask you to describe your thesis a little bit to me, the two parts that it is comprised of, because it is self-portraits and it is a documentary side to it as well. Would you lay that out for us?
Well, my thesis, to put it, in a few sentences, is to use photography to investigate women's situation in Myanmar. And the reason I use photography is because the photography has different set of qualities and different set of, language. So it's more capable of, of telling a story without really telling it, suggesting a story, because Myanmar has many, broadly worded laws that, say, for example, if I directly criticize a religion, I could be sent to prison for, criticizing the religion. But with photography, I can suggest a story without necessarily using the words. So that's one of the reasons I use photography, to investigate women's situation in Myanmar, because it's such a sensitive topic, because it all leads back to religion. So, like you mentioned, it's two parts. One is my self-portraits. It's self-portraits. I use it to make, critical commentary of women's situation in Myanmar. So I photographed myself doing different, male-only professions. Like, say, for example, I photographed myself as a steeplejack. Because steeplejacks, they climb heights, and women are not allowed to climb heights. So I photographed myself as one. And I photographed myself as like an astronaut, Myanmar currently does not have a space program. And I doubt that, when the time comes, the women will be the first, in line to be chosen as astronauts. So I photograph myself as well. It was quite fun. But essentially what I was doing was that I was imagining, a world without any limitations for women, pretty much. And I photographed myself as, say, an army general. And that picture was removed from my thesis for security, and safety reasons. The reason was that in Myanmar military, as you may already, know that it's majority, made of men, and women women were only invited in late 2000, and they were only invited for the sake of, of invitation, but they weren't really given any higher up or, any powerful position. So I decided that I was gonna be the general. So I decided to photograph myself as, dressed as a general and stuff. So things like that. So it was like to, I hope to suggest and, women that why don't we have, women doing this job in a way indirectly to, suggest them that there's really a problem in our society that we need addressing. And that's through my self-portraiture. And for documentary project, the title is called Do It Like a Woman. And one of the prints was donated to Print for Crisis. The reason I named Do It Like a Woman is because to show that, these incredible, remarkable women are, doing these things in our society, yet it is not acknowledged that women are doing these things. So that's the reason I name it Do It Like a Woman. So I thought, well, for that series, I travel all over, Myanmar. It's still an ongoing project, and I can see it, being like a lifelong project for me because, so many incredible women in Myanmar doing so many incredible things that I felt that need to be, shared with Myanmar society to acknowledge them and to see them. So, so I photographed women, doing men's jobs in all over Myanmar. Say one woman, she, carrying water for the village, and Myanmar traditional, sayings indicate that women are weak. Yet these women, she was 4 months pregnant when I photographed her. She was carrying, 2 large jugs of water for the village, to make a living. So where was this, stereotype? Do you see what I mean? So all these like stereotypes and views only came to play when it's beneficial to the patriarchal society. So I photographed her in a local MP's house. I wanted to photograph these women as strong and capable, and not as what the society see them or what they think the society see them. Because that was my whole point of doing this, this project for the society, to see these women as strong, capable, and beautiful, and that these stereotypes are ironic and, contradicting. So that's the point of it. So it became like a 2 series. One is my story, and the other one is the story of, these women. And so both of them are ongoing projects of mine.
I personally think it's absolutely marvelous, also the way you've laid it out, because first of all, also the structure of it, like with these 2 different parts of it, you basically expressing a utopia that shouldn't be a utopia and therefore will actually force a shift in normality, as far of expressing the hope in the shift of normality, at least, which I think is very, very powerful. And that's why photography is just so well suited also for this, because it is so easily relatable as well. It actually made me think also of I don't know if you're familiar with Chiara Luxardo's series Burma
brilliant.
Love, where she puts because it's not the same at all. I don't want to compare them, but it is tying in with a similar viewpoint in the sense that you are taking something that is you're combining 2 different contexts that don't work with each other, because of stereotypes and because of stigmata. And you look at them and you're like, but why not actually?
Yeah, she's
Where is
also
the problem?
worked on that.
And
yeah, it's
and
a
this is
taboo
wonderful.
topic, isn't it? Both of them are. And so I suppose both me and Kiara can sort of have to came up with a creative way to address the issue without really calling out on the military or, or the society,
Yes.
I suppose.
Yes. And then also your documentary part. When you were talking about it now, it just made me think of an amazing documentary I saw the other day on Netflix, and I forgot its name now. I will link to it though, so that everybody can find it. It wasn't about women; it was about the trans community, and just an examination, a journey really into representation of trans people in the media, in films, in movies, and their roles in society. And after watching the film, I could not help but just think how amazing they all are, because for the very simple reason, the adversities they have to face, the courage that they have to show on a daily level, being faced with so much prejudice from the vast majority of a society, and still doing your thing and staying true to yourself. These are all qualities that we find in minorities very often, that we dismiss because they are minorities, meanwhile feeding their being so extraordinary even more by this. Not to say that therefore we should maintain this, but we should look at them and realize how much they have to offer to us in terms of learning, in terms of appreciation of our own values, and examining ourselves first and foremost, and that we are responsible for our values and what makes us live this life at the fullest. And this is absolutely extraordinary. And it ties in with what you just said as well, to be able to present this and to just put this right in front of someone and say, look, this is what is happening every single day. You have no idea, actually. And to create that admiration in someone is amazing. So I think your project is just, not that it matters what I think, don't get me wrong, but I think it is, I have the highest admiration for what you've done and for what you're doing.
Thank you so much. You are very kind.
No, I'm just very emotional sometimes, but I really think you are just doing something extraordinary. And that's why it's an even bigger pleasure to have you here in the van with us. Really, I'm so happy about this.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm glad you say that, because in the beginning you said you're a little nervous, so at least
because I know myself that I
we moved past that a little bit now.
That's all.
No, but don't say that. Don't say you don't bubble on. You're really sharing so many wonderful things, and it's triggering so much in me as well. So I really think you just go on talking whenever you want to talk. You just talk. You also spoke of. I think we've covered in a way why there are so few women photographers in Myanmar, because there is no encouragement to escape certain stereotypical roles and stuff. And by the way, just quickly, I have to add this, because very often it happens that then people listen to this like, it's like, women feminism in Myanmar, we don't have that problem here. That problem exists everywhere, just in varying degrees. And we're just coming to grips with it. It's an ongoing process. And I have to be very clear in saying that. Don't tune out because you hear Myanmar and feminism. It's the same still in Germany. It's the same in England. As I said, in varying degrees, but still a lot of work has to be done. I just had to get that out of the way quickly. Now asking you, I would like to know what can be done to encourage women more to take up photography. What kind of little triggers could be put in place?
Access to free photography education. As you're well aware of, our country's economic situation and especially after this coup, it's going to take a while for a country to get back to where we were before, before the 1st of February. And saying that, within like 2 months, a country that it was unbelievable where the country, stood right now in terms of, economic and education and healthcare, everything. really. So it's going to take us a while to build us back to where we were. So I would say that the most important thing would be free photography education, because when I was in Myanmar, I didn't know where to seek for photography education, and that's why I said Duma Collective is doing incredible things, because they've been hosting, free photography lectures, for women and workshops and things like that. So we need more of those kind of sort of initiative, but not just in Rangoon, but all over Burma. And another thing is the access to digital cameras, because camera is it's often a luxury item for many people in Myanmar, and so it's not going to be the priority thing, even if you are interested in photography. It's not like one day they can go out and buy it off the shop. So we really need access to digital cameras and also like create safe platforms for women to practice photography. That's another important thing, because as we've already discussed this in our earlier discussion, that the photography has ability to say and communicate things that we're not really sure of using through using our spoken language. So women might want to say something, but they're not quite sure, and they might feel quite worried that how it's going to affect them. So I think we also need a creative, a safe environment for women to practice photography as well, without judgments and, without repercussions for what they use their photography. That's another important thing, because under the military rule, they have instilled the fear in people that, like, it became like a norm. Like, when I was younger, we used to say things that, don't say that there will be a blue bus, meaning that the what's that called? The police vehicle, will be waiting for you. Like, we used to joke each other with friends that don't say that the blue bus will be waiting for you, or the blue bus going to come and get you, kind of thing. And more so after this revolution, because of the brutality that the military have shown towards photographers and journalists as well. So, like, not just women really, men and women both who are interested in photography would need assurances that they can, they have freedom of expression, and they can use their cameras to tell whatever stories they want to tell, and there will be no repercussions, or they will be punished for that. So I think that's what's important to move forward from this. And also, of course, free photography education and access to cameras as well.
Yeah. I think it's so important what you're saying as well, because I mean, obviously this is I'm not very objective. I dabble in photography and film as well. But I do believe that arts are so important exactly for that reason, for what you just said. And going back to also the film I referred to about the trans community, you're telling the stories of the women community in Myanmar. It's, if we enable people to tell their story, if they are represented in society through the arts, because the biggest problem is that very often other people tell other people's stories, right? If you empower and enable people to tell their own, then they have a better representation. And in that sense, we can then also see what qualities we actually need in society, because it is especially minorities and their daily struggle to make it in an otherwise different, or in a society that is looking down at them or is not recognizing them. The daily courage that it takes to live their life is something that we need more in our society, and this is exactly how we can develop an understanding for that better, by putting cameras in their hands, by giving them a pencil or something. And this is what you are.
Yes,
what you are
exactly.
Also saying.
Give them women tools to tell their own stories, And I think that will do incredible things for gender equality as well in Myanmar. Because, say, for example, another thing I discussed in my thesis is that I use photography, to investigate women's situation in Myanmar. It's because of what is the right word to say it, is that misconception of feminism in Myanmar as well. For feminism, is to promote gender equality, to make women equal to men. But when I was doing, my research in Myanmar, I came across many men and women. They don't want to support feminism because our religion said women are not equal to men. Women are lower than men. So they don't want to support a movement that questions the religion. So they believe that feminism is to make women, above men. They see it as the movement of like a feminazi kind of thing, if you were to say. So I said, no, feminism is to make women equal to men, which we're not saying women are better than men. We're saying women are equal to men and should have, equal rights. And then it became a question of, hang on a second, our religion said women are lower than men. Are you questioning the religion? It is against the law. We don't want to support the movement which questions the religion. So it's quite difficult to use words to correct this misconception as well, because it became like this, going into this, rabbit hole of like questioning the religion, this and the other. So that's another reason I'm using photography to show that, look at these women, that our society said women can't do this, but here they are doing these things, and how incredible and strong they are. So in a way, sort of to tackle that misconception as well, I suppose. So I think that for gender equality in Myanmar, I think photography can be a really useful tool to, correct all these outdated views and misconceptions and stereotypes, I suppose.
I would like to know one thing from you, because it's difficult to gather for me sometimes. It's a question also that I've been, that's been accompanying me for also quite some time. I'd like to know from you, why do you think men discriminate against women? Why do you think that is in the first place? Why are we living in unequal societies? Where does that come from? Where does it stem from?
I can't speak for other countries and stuff, but from my understanding and from what I can gather from my experience, is that it started since as a child. How parents are raising their sons. Say, for example, in my country, I remember my cousin, my aunt would tell my cousin brother not to let me climb over him, or would tell me not to climb over him when we were playing as children. That's been instilled in little boys' like minds ever since then, that they shouldn't let women do this, that, and the other. And then also from their parents' relationship as well, how mom always look after dad, and how mom don't talk back to dad, or parents will openly say to their little boys, why are you afraid of playing with this? You should be wearing a skirt. Do you know what I mean? Are you a girl? That kind of like tone. And as I mentioned in my thesis, that all these like sexist views and stereotypes are still in Myanmar society. It's because they are being perpetrated every day by husbands and brothers, fathers and sons to women themselves, and women themselves believing that they are lower than men. So I think it needs a systemic change, really, that like parents need to raise their sons and daughters knowing that everybody's equal, and no one, not one sex is better than the other, or just because your sex you should behave this way, that on the other. So I think that's what the problem in Myanmar. I'm guessing that will be the same in other countries as well. How you were raising your sons into believing that in such stereotypes.
It's a matter of societal structures, without any doubt, with heritage, I believe, to a very large degree as well. What kind of schools, absolutely. Schools, education has a big part to play. But I'm also thinking, in order for these structures to develop, there has to be something in place first, and for me, it is everything that is discriminating and destroying of any sort in life, for me, is always something that is very much rooted in fear. Maybe I'm making it too easy for myself there. Who knows? Whoever thinks differently, I'm glad to take this up. But I do believe if you really bring it down to its essentials, it always has something to do with fear.
I believe so.
So let me ask you this question a little differently. Why are men so afraid of women?
Wow, that's a difficult question. It will need some thinking.
I know. You have all the time. You know, your mojitos, there's still something in there. Or, take a sip. No.
Oh. I'm not sure, like, if they were scared, maybe they are intimidated, you know, because everything men have, it comes quite easily, you know, to them. Like, say, for example, like, you know, I would just use that example in Myanmar again, because, you know, because I know a little bit more about Myanmar than compared to, you know, other countries as you know, in general. So in Myanmar, our constitution guarantees that women have equal rights to men. Yeah. But there are still some jobs and leadership positions are advertised as only male only. So everything that men, you know, got came quite easily to them. But if the women get into that leadership position, it became quite. Do you see where I'm going with this? So it's not that only, you know, men's club anymore. So now they got to watch out for women coming for their jobs as well, or, you know, coming for what they got as well. Because you know, say, for example, I think it's quite a confident thought for men thinking that, well, we are better than, we are, you know, like higher than women because, you know, we can be bolder, but whereas they cannot, you know, it's a feeling knowing that I'm superior to another. Does it make sense to you? I think that's what it is. Well, I think that's another thing with, you know, this military and Aung San Suu Kyi as well, and their, you know, disdain and, you know, and their hatred towards her is because it has something to do with her being a woman, and, you know, her defying all these, like, you know, traditional stereotypes, saying marrying a foreigner, you know, and leaving the country and then being able to come back to Myanmar and you know, this many people respect her and, you know, like, and followed her, this and the others. So I think it has to do with, you know, with her being a woman as well, to be fair. Because, you know, when they attack her, they use like very sexist slang, saying like, you know, the woman who destroy the race, and, you know, the woman who's going to destroy the religion, and people who support Aung San Suu Kyi, you know, like, what they use, like, really inflammatory, like, words, saying like, you should go and hide under her skirt. Do you know what I mean? Like, making references to her sex as well. Because when you insult a male politician, you will never use that word, saying you should go hide under his trousers, or, you know, like, things like that. So yeah, so I think that it's just the thought that I don't think it's scared, but I just think that is they feel intimidated and don't like the thought of, you know, their comfortable world being, you know, like, shared, or maybe they would like to use the word invaded by women, or starting to accept that, you know, they're not so special after all.
Yes, I absolutely agree that, you know, what you said, that that a lot of things, or most things, are a lot easier for men compared to women, obviously, and I think that's a given. For me, at least, that's a given. For me, it's about this, what you're just describing, though, like the sponsoring emotion for all of this that you've just described, right? So that the why do men think that they have to put themselves in power over women? Why did they put these structures in place to make it so much easier for them? Why didn't, I mean, obviously there are examples of matriarchal societies, but they are a very small number. For me, it's interesting. Why did it get to this, though? Like, why? And that's, again, why I stick with what I just said. And I think reason for that is that men are to some degree afraid of women. And I personally believe, and I think I might have even said this already in a previous episode, it has to do with men's great fear of, it's a chicken or an egg question for me, because in a way it has to do with a man's disappointment when his love is not returned, and a male pride, and this incredible powerlessness that you experience when you fall in love with someone and they don't return your love is most probably one of the worst things that can happen to a man, right? And I do believe it is some sort of a self-protection that men have put in place to spare themselves to be disappointed by or having to face up to, okay, she didn't love me, and made it like women are not worth for me to worry about whether it is my fault or not. When in doubt, it's always their fault.
Yes.
Can you follow what I'm saying?
Yes,
Does that make any sense?
It makes perfect sense. So what I want to add a point to what you just said and what I just said.
Gladly.
So I'm going to talk about this revolution again. Yes, so many women like that you already mentioned being arrested and detained, throughout this revolution because their involvement in it. So there's been recent allegations that women who've been detained, being sexually assaulted, and tortured during the interrogations. Oh, I'm not going to say names because I don't think it's. I don't want to put this, because in Myanmar culture, women who've been sexually, assaulted or raped, and they often shift the blame on women, and that you shouldn't be dressed like that, or our women who are no longer virgin or pure are being, like seen as a loose character, this and the other, which is another, topic that we can discuss. But so this, there have been allegations that there have been sexual assault and torture against women, against some women who've been detained. And one of the reasons that one girl in particular was arrested, not arrested but tortured repeatedly, and assaulted, was that they found out that her boyfriend is a foreigner, and they use it as one more reason to even assault her and torment her even more and beat her up, this and the other. So you can see how, and they truly believe that they must protect race and religion and women being public property, and how dare she date a foreigner? How dare she try to betray our race or religion? So this is what we discussed earlier. And another thing is that when these views are being like when this stories is like was being circulated on social media, there were men commenting that, don't worry, I will take care of you. Don't worry, like I will protect your dignity, and I will, and then I will marry you. So here, I am, and other women, we're thinking, like, hang on a second, who are you to say that to her? Do you know what I mean? She's not a damaged God. Do you see what I mean? And just because she's been, I'm not sure this allegation, maybe, it's true, maybe it's not. Maybe, even if she was raped or not, it doesn't matter. It doesn't devalue a woman. Woman's worth is not linked to virginity. Do you see what I'm saying? So I know that man might have said out of, goodness or whatever he think he was doing out of his heart, saying that how, and many men was like saying that, oh, you are such a good man, like very brave, this and the other, for wanted to marry that girl, who's no longer pure or whatever. So can you see how entitled he must feel that she will marry him just because do you see what I mean? So that's another thing that I want to point it out as well. That men feel entitled to enough to say that, come out and say that, I suppose.
No, what you just said, to be honest with you, this is what I just wrote down here, because you put it very beautifully. I think what I also, tying in with what you said, what I was trying to say earlier was, I think that men are making the mistake of, or they're mistaking their own dignity with another person's free choice.
Yes,
I think
exactly.
this is what I was trying to say. And this correlation or this misunderstanding in male-female relationship has, at least according to me, and this might be the biggest load of crap, of course, but to this exact situation that we find ourselves in a majority of our societies, where men overpower women so that they don't have to face up to the fact that they might have just not been good enough for this particular individual. And then collectively hold women hostage so they don't ever have to face up to that at all. At least that's my feeling.
I think it's quite, it's quite accurate, I think.
I don't know if there's anything accurate about it. It's just what I could imagine, and then that doesn't have to mean anything, of course. But it's interesting to just go into that sometimes. What do you think needs to happen for this democratic movement to be successful? I think one ingredient already is that women are participating in this democratic movement already, I think is a strong sign after everything that we've talked about. And I referred to that at the beginning already, that's a lot of reason for hope, right? And what else does need to be in place for you to keep this optimism that you're showing here, despite everything, which I admire very much?
I think, I don't want to say the outside help because I don't want to, to give myself false hope or, anything like that at all. I think that the most important thing is us carrying on and not giving up because, we can live like that. There is no way back for us and there is no way back for them. That which is the most important thing because they've murdered this many people. They've detained this many people. They've committed this much atrocities. And what people are fighting for is that we don't want our future, children to grow up under this kind of, dictatorship again and thinking that if you have a weapon, you can do whatever you want, to people who haven't got a weapon, pretty much, really. That's how they rule the country, using weapons, So we want the whole country, the reform. We want federal democracy. We want the real thing. And that we don't want this military anymore. And to get for everything, that we want is we have to continue fighting. Like, I've said repeatedly that we have no other choice. I know, it's so easy for me to say that because I'm outside Myanmar, but my family stay there and I know, what we're sacrificing for and what people on the ground are sacrificing for. So, it's not really, like, what can we do to win this? I think we just have to keep doing what we're doing because what else can we do? What other things can we do? Rather, now we're fighting every day, going out to protest and doing civil disobedient movements and trying to support the CRPH and the now NUG, National Unity Government, that is being formed. So we want to support this government, the people's government, and we want them to give us, directions, what people need to follow, and then we'll do whatever, that is needed and necessary for us to win this.
And in order for that to happen, also what is absolutely necessary is that people in Myanmar keep on communicating, keep on talking, have the channels open to coordinate their actions and so on, which is why, and I have to point out to Print for Crisis again, buying a print is helping exactly maintaining that there at the moment. And
No, you were right. Teza. And Print for Crisis, what they're doing is so incredible because they're giving funds and they're going to raise funds for press and, artists and journalists in Myanmar, which is essential because if it wasn't for them, there would not be, news coming out of Myanmar. I know that news will still be coming out of Myanmar, but, they're risking their lives, on the ground every day to show the world what's going on and, what's happening and stuff. So, it's really quite incredible what Kiara and, Olga are doing and Print for Crisis as well.
It's absolutely amazing. And they have also asked me to point to some other organizations as well, which I will link to. Also, I off the top of my head, I forgot now. There are a few. I will definitely link to them as well. They said that I should just, and this just speaks to them, get, no matter where it goes and where help comes from, it as long as it gets there, obviously. And just because this is obviously a very much photography driven initiative as well. I would like for you, because you've been pointing them out in the beginning already, to maybe just give us you talked about the Duma Collective.
Collective is the first women only women photographers collective in Myanmar. And I don't want to do self-promotion, but I want to talk about this program that I worked on and I've developed during my PhD. And that I've decided to develop free education programs for women in Myanmar to bridge the gap and to make photography education more accessible for women in Myanmar. So what we did was that we run women-only photography, free photography workshop, and we were able to provide the participants with access to digital cameras as well. So, that when we advertised that workshop, there were over 200 women who applied for it. And some women traveled, from miles, 100 miles away, to attend that workshop. So that shows that there's actually a drive for free, photography education for women in Myanmar. So that's why what Duma Collective is now doing is quite incredible, because they are on the ground, they go, and they do regular workshops and this and the other. Why, when I'm outside and, the workshop I give is it's based on when I'm in the country sort of way. So I'm not aware of photographers, women photographers collective in Myanmar, but there have been other women artists collective in Myanmar. One of them is I think Blue Wave, and I think it was formed by performance artists, and she's a very talented, one of the pioneer women artists from Myanmar. She's called Puma. She paints, and she also used photography as a medium as well, and she's been invited to many festivals, around the world, and her artwork is quite incredible. She also does performance art as well. So I think she formed a collective of Blue Wave like a while back. And that was the only women collective I found when I was doing my PhD research in 2015. And then, I came across Duma and this and the other. So at this moment, I believe that for women, if you want to talk about photographers collective, I think Duma, or, in Burmese, it means she. They are the only female women collectives in Myanmar. But with the rise and, with the increase of free photography education and access to free digital cameras, and, and I want to use the word continuous access to camera, so that women can, work on their own stories and pursue photography, and create, free and safe environment for women to practice photography. With the increase of that, I think there will be many more, let's hope that many more women photographers collective and women only photo festivals and shows in Myanmar in the near future. And by then we should have won the revolution by then, where women will have gender equality as well. So it will go hands in hand with, increase of women photographers as well. That would just be incredible. And I think it's in the near future.
And I think what you are saying and pointing out, that is something we spoke about earlier already. Just put the tools, when you talk about feminist tools, I think anything artistic and artistic tools are exactly that. They are about emancipation, and they're about creating equality and the representation. So whenever we think of equal societies, we should move away from telling stories about other people, but we should empower people to tell their own stories. And this is the only way of equal representation, and therefore in the long term changing things. So what you are doing is absolutely essential. It deserves all the support and all the praise. And I am just so happy that you came on the Yellow Van with us today. I will obviously also link to all the things, the collectives you just pointed out, so that people can get a good understanding of it themselves, and support them. And also for people that just want to support, minorities. They want to support good storytelling. You will find something. If you're like, why do I have to go to Myanmar first? Do something in your local area as well. There are always opportunities, but obviously today we focus on Myanmar. So please, first check out Print for Crisis. Check out some of those wonderful Myanmar collectives that you just described so well, Teza. And then after that, you can look what's happening in your backyard. Thank you so much for coming on the Yellow Van with us today. Teza, I learned a lot. I'm sure the listeners learned a lot. And we are supporting you by just buying a print. I'm going to head out now and buy another print. And I hope so will everybody else that listened. And keep in mind that this is a democratic movement that is carried by women, and that in itself is reason for hope. And in the long term, hopefully also celebration. That's what I'm wishing for you. And I think everybody else.
Thank you
as
so
well.
much for inviting me and, giving me this opportunity to talk about the issues that are so important to me. And also, you can see they're so important to many people of Myanmar, and also for promoting Print for Crisis and for encouraging people to buy prints, which will go to incredible. It's such an incredible cause, and it will go to places that really need it, and in a way promote freedom of expression and freedom of access to information in Myanmar. So please, buy prints and support the Print for Crisis. And yeah, I really had a great time, discussing this with you, and I hope that I didn't babble on too much, and that the technical glitch wasn't too bad for you to sort it out.
No, you were
I'm just on a
great,
thing, and I'm not on the real D. I can imagine what you would have to cope with if I'm on the real thing.
We will do that. We will try that during your next visit in the yellow van. There will be another time, I am absolutely sure. And then we will find out exactly what it's like when you don't have a virgin mojito. I'm looking very much forward to that as well, because really, at no point I had the feeling that you were babbling, not in the slightest. Everything you said, it triggered a lot of things in me, a lot of thoughts, and you gave us a lot of insights. And I apologize if I maybe blabbered a little bit too much, because I did say in the beginning, I think when it is about women telling about their situation and their stories, I think it's up to us men to really, for once, maybe to listen instead of talking so much. And I hope I found a good mixture. If I didn't, I apologize. And if I did, I am very happy about that. And I'm sure everybody listening in will have their different own, take on this, but that's okay. That's okay. I really enjoyed our conversation immensely. Thank you so much. And just quickly in closing as well, I have to say, because I don't want to make it sound like, just go out there and get a print so that you do something good. No. Just go out there and get a print, because those prints are just really amazing, like amazing photographers like John Fink, Christine Perkins, and so on, really established photographers, wonderful photographers. These prints are £90 a pop. So, and they're limited edition. It's an investment more than a help or anything like that. So, like I say in the beginning as well, always, never has been doing good mutually exclusive with doing something good for yourself. I think we've created a perfect mix here. So just, get a print. They're wonderful. They're beautiful. And you're helping people to maintain democracy and establish democracy, which is a good thing as well. So Teza, thank you so much again for being with us. It was such a pleasure. Wishing you all the best, and I hope that we speak again soon. Thank you.
And also thank you for running these, sections, especially focusing on what's happening in Myanmar and shining a light on what's happening and giving a platform, to people to raise an issue, about this. So really, really grateful for that. And now I'm going to have to run to my dog, who is not so happy because I've ignored her for 2 hours. So I'm gonna have to go and attend to that priorities.
That's very understandable. If anyone has seen the photo of your dog, what is her name again? Isla. Anyone, I should post the picture, because there's a picture on your WhatsApp profile with her looking up at you with these big, beautiful eyes. I'm sure that's exactly how she's going to welcome you back now after 2 hours with me. Well, enjoy the walk, enjoy Isla. And again, it was such a pleasure, Teza, and you will be back.
Thank you so much. You have a lovely Sunday night, and hope to catch up with you again soon.
And with this, we have come to the end of this week's trip in the Yellow Van, an episode dedicated to the courageous women of Myanmar in particular, and to the emancipatory movement all across our globe in general. Discrimination against women is still found everywhere, ranging from brutally obvious to structural subtleties. The only way to change this is to become aware of our prejudices and how they in turn narrow our perception. It is not about everybody being the same, but rather to give equal opportunity to all. It is our best way forward to include everybody to face the challenges that lie ahead, climate change being the single most catastrophe mankind has ever faced. We owe it to no one but to ourselves. In Germany, where I was born, I often come across a self-congratulatory attitude with regards to improving the role of women in society. Yet for 2 weeks, ever since announcing her run for office, Annalena Baerbock, the Green Party's candidate for the chancellorship in this year's upcoming German parliamentary elections, had to face one question more than any other: how she will manage her role as a mother of 2 small children and the highest office in German politics at the same time. No male contender in the history of the Federal Republic of Germany ever had to face up to this question. Why do you think that is? If we manage to spark your interest and solidarity for current events in Myanmar, take 5 minutes and visit printforcrisis.org. Even if you're just in it for a nice, affordable, limited edition fine art print for your wall, this is a great opportunity to fill that nagging blank space above your dinner table. Because, as it turns out, doing good for yourself, as well as others, doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. And don't forget to tell your friends about it. All information about Teza and her work you can find in the show notes, along with all other relevant links to today's conversation. Thank you all so much for coming along the Yellow Van today. We hope you enjoyed your time on the road with us. We sure enjoyed our time with you. If you feel I missed some essential questions or follow-ups, like I'm sure I did, please send them to us and we will have them answered for you. Or get in touch with Chiara and Olga directly through the Print for Crisis website for everything directly related to the print sale. For its entire duration until the 11th of May, we will continue to travel through Myanmar, and we hope to welcome you back next week for a brand new episode. Until then, stay healthy, keep loving, and always remember, we are one human family. Take it away, Jim.